Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there lived a powerful king named King Alden. He had everything he could ever wish for: wealth, power, and land. Yet, his greatest desire was to see his son, Prince Leo, grow up to be the future ruler of the kingdom, a ruler who would make the kingdom even stronger. One day, after the birth of his son, King Alden decided to consult a famous fortune-teller in the hopes of understanding what his son's future would hold. The fortune-teller, a wise old woman, gazed into her crystal ball and whispered with a soft voice, "Your son will grow to be a great man, but his heart will be taken by a poor girl from a humble family. They will marry, and together, they will bring great change to the kingdom." The king was taken aback by this. Poor girl. His son, the future king, marrying someone from a poor family was unthinkable. He felt angry, disturbed, and upset. How could he allow such a marriage? He wanted his son to marry someone who could bring honor and wealth to the kingdom, someone with noble blood. King Alden spent many sleepless nights thinking about how to prevent this from happening. He could not stand the thought of his son marrying someone from a poor family, and so he devised a plan. A few months after the fortune-teller's words, the king decided to visit the family of the girl his son was destined to marry. He traveled to a small, humble village where a poor fisherman named Thomas lived with his 5 children. As the king approached the small cottage, Thomas stood at the doorway with a troubled look on his face. His heart sank when he saw the king. The king, with his regal presence, was not a visitor anyone expected. With tears in his eyes, Thomas pleaded with the king, "Your Majesty, I have nothing to offer. My children are hungry, and I struggle to feed them. I have just had a daughter, a newborn, and I don't know how I will raise her. Please, if you can, help me." The king, seeing an opportunity, knew that this was his chance. He could take the girl away and ensure that she would never meet his son. Without hesitation, the king agreed to take the newborn girl with him, promising Thomas that he would care for her. As the king left the village, he carried the little girl in a basket. He traveled for miles, far from the poor village, until he reached a river. There by the bank he stopped. In his heart, he could feel a strange emptiness, but he knew he had to do this. With a cold heart, the king placed the girl in the basket and gently set it adrift in the flowing river. "This is the only way," the king whispered to himself. "I will do whatever it takes to keep my son from marrying a poor girl." The king watched as the basket floated away, disappearing into the river. He turned around and left, feeling a strange sense of relief. As the sun began to set, a fisherman named Jacob, who was known for his gentle nature, was at the river catching fish. He noticed the basket bobbing on the water's surface and swam toward it, curious. When he opened the basket, he saw a beautiful baby girl, her face peaceful despite the journey she had already endured. Jacob's heart broke for the girl, and he wondered who could have abandoned her. Without a second thought, Jacob took the child in his arms, cradling her with tenderness. He named her Ilara and raised her as his own daughter. He taught her to fish, swim, and work hard to survive, instilling in her values of kindness, strength, and perseverance. Years passed, and Ilara grew into a beautiful young woman. She had long golden hair, bright blue eyes, and a warm smile that lit up her face. Jacob continued to care for her as his own daughter, proud of the kind-hearted woman she had become. One evening, as the sun began to set, Ilara was sitting by the riverbank, fishing. She enjoyed the calm, the serenity, and the sense of peace the river brought her. As she cast her line, a chariot passed by on the nearby road. Inside the chariot, Prince Leo, the king's son, was on his way home. As soon as he saw Ilara sitting by the river, his eyes locked onto her, captivated by her beauty. Prince Leo immediately instructed his guards to stop. He walked toward Ilara, and when he got closer, he was taken aback by how stunning she was. Their eyes met, and for a moment neither of them spoke. The prince smiled and said, "You are more beautiful than anything I have ever seen. May I join you?" Ilara, though surprised, smiled back. They struck up a conversation, and she told him about her life with her father, how they lived by the river and made a humble living. The prince was fascinated by her story, and he invited her to dinner at the palace. Ilara was hesitant at first, but she spoke to her father, who gave his blessing. That evening, Ilara arrived at the grand palace, where the royal family eagerly awaited. Prince Leo could not stop talking about the beautiful girl he had met. The royal court was curious to meet her, and they all gathered around the dinner table. As the meal went on, the queen asked Ilara to share more about herself. With a deep breath, Ilara began to speak. "I was born to a poor family," she said softly. "My father is a fisherman, and he found me by the river when I was just a baby. I've lived my whole life with him, and I've learned to work hard." The king's face went pale as he listened to Ilara's story. The girl he had thrown into the river 21 years ago was sitting right in front of him. His heart raced, and his mind raced with thoughts of how to undo the damage. After dinner, the king took Ilara aside and gave her a letter. "If you wish to be with my son," he said with a cold smile, "take this letter to my brother in a distant kingdom. But do not open it." Ilara, though curious, trusted the king and took the letter. She had developed strong feelings for Prince Leo and was eager to be with him. As she journeyed toward the distant kingdom, the sun began to set once again. But as she walked, a group of thugs attacked her, stealing her belongings. One of the thieves found the letter and opened it, reading its contents. He felt sympathy for Ilara, and after some thought, he decided to change the letter. He wrote a new message: "Protect this girl. She is destined to marry the prince, and when the prince arrives, prepare a wedding for them." The thief returned the letter to Ilara and let her go on her way. When Ilara arrived at the distant kingdom, she handed the altered letter to the king's brother, who was overjoyed. The wedding preparations began, and soon Prince Leo arrived. The prince and Ilara were married, their hearts full of love and joy. Years passed, and one day, King Alden decided to visit his brother and son. He was furious when he arrived and saw that Ilara, the girl he had thrown into the river, was now standing before him as his daughter-in-law. The king couldn't contain his anger. He took Ilara to the riverbank and, with a heavy heart, removed her wedding ring from her finger. "If you want to be with my son," the king said, "find this ring. It's the only way." Ilara, heartbroken and confused, left the palace. Prince Leo, unaware of what had happened, believed that Ilara had left him by choice. He sank into deep sadness. Years later, Ilara worked as a chef in a restaurant, using her skills to prepare delicious meals. One day, the royal family decided to dine at the same restaurant. Ilara was in the kitchen working hard when she saw them arrive. She quickly hid, not wanting to face them. The restaurant owner, unaware of who Ilara was, asked her to prepare a special fish dish for the royal family. As she opened the fish, something shiny caught her eye. It was her wedding ring. The very same ring the king had thrown into the river so many years ago. At that moment, Ilara knew it was fate. She took the ring and prepared the meal with care and love. When the royal family tasted the fish, they were amazed by its flavor. The king, intrigued, asked the restaurant owner to bring the chef forward. When Ilara appeared, the royal family was stunned. The king, especially, could not believe his eyes. But before he could speak, Ilara showed him the ring she had found. "I found it, Your Majesty," she said. "And now I want to be with my husband." The king, at last, realized that he could not change destiny. He had tried to stop it, but love had triumphed. With a heavy heart, he called Ilara closer and, with great pride, announced to the court, "This woman is my son's wife." Ilara and Prince Leo were finally able to live in peace and happiness, their love stronger than ever. And so, the beautiful girl and the handsome prince lived happily ever after, proving that true love can never be stopped by power, wealth, or even the will of a king.